Good morning, Algebra 1. So today what we're going to do is we are going to be talking about the 7th installment of our radicals. And the main point of this lesson is going to be focusing on multiplying radicals, but of course I always want to start off with a little bit of a refresher so you can remember where we came from to see where we're going to go. So last time we talked about adding and subtract, actually 2 times ago we talked about adding and subtracting, and last time we talked about what number 3 looks like with the division. So for adding and subtracting, for number 1, I want to make sure that I have the same thing inside of my radicand. And we notice that both of them do have a 40, so what I'm going to do is just take the outsides and subtract them. So 3 minus 4. 3 minus 4 is going to be negative 1. What I have left on the inside is the cube root of 40. So what I have to realize is, A, you can keep this negative 1 here, or you could just have it be a negative 1 times, or just a negative on the outside. You don't have to have the 1 with it. The other thing is that you can simplify what's inside of your radicand. You can simplify 40 into 8 times 5. Now we're looking for the perfect cube, which is 8. And so I'm going to pull one of those 2's to the outside. So I'm going to have a negative 2 times the cube root of 5. So here the only difference is when you're asked to simplify, yes, the only time we're allowed to add or subtract is when both of those radicands are the same. However, when it says to simplify, you got to make sure every little part is simplified, and that includes what is underneath the radicand. Now I could have taken an alternate approach. I could have simplified in the beginning and then went to add and subtract their radicands. I'm going to end up with this same answer down here, but this was just an alternate way to do it. Alright, so I'm going to jump to, well, actually we can just go and do number 2. So for number 2, what value of h makes this equation true? First thing I want you to do is just cover up. If you want to think about it, scratch it off or whatever, look at, pretend it was just an x, and it was x plus 10 is equal to 15. What would x be? You got to think about it in your head. It should be 5. Okay, so really what you're going to ask yourself is the square root of what is 5? Because our goal is we want the answer, once we simplify the square root, to be 5. So we can think about it as the square root of what is equal to 5, and we can bounce around in our heads for a little bit and realize that 5 times 5 is 25. So h is going to be 25. If I simplified that, it would just be 5 plus 10, which is 15. For number 3, we talked about when we do this, we want to take the square root of both the top and the bottom and then simplify our fraction. So if I had the square root of 4x 30, I'm going to take both the square roots of the 4 and then the x to the 30. So on top, I'm going to have 2x to the, oh sorry, it's not 30, it's 20. I wrote 30. So it's going to be 2x to the 10. So if you want to think about it, you're going to take the 20 divided by 2, and you should have a 10 left for your exponent. And then on the bottom, we're going to do the square root of 36y6. And so when I go to simplify that, the square root of 36 is just 6. And then the square root of y to the 6 is y cubed. My last step, can I simplify any of these fractions? I notice that on top, I have x's, on bottom I have y's. Those aren't going to simplify. But I could simplify the numbers that I have. I can simplify the 2 and the 6, and my final answer is going to have x10 on top, 3y3 on bottom. Let me actually box in all my answers so we can see. And so this was a little bit of a review. It included bits and pieces of things that we've talked about, and some things that we have not necessarily directly talked about, but I've kind of mentioned a little bit for number 2 there. Alright, so as we move on to multiplying radicals, in my opinion, is probably going to come a little bit easier to everyone. And that's because we're going to do, similar to multiplying fractions. You kind of want to multiply every single thing, and that's what we're going to end up doing. So when you multiply them, before you can do that, you have to make sure that the index is the same. That is the only rule. So you just have to make sure that you're either doing square roots or cube roots or whatever it is, but you're only multiplying with the same index. And you do that in order to multiply their radicands, so the numbers on the inside. Alright, so when I go to multiply, I'm going to multiply the outside terms, and additionally, I'm going to multiply, let me pick a different color here, I'm going to multiply the inside terms as well. Alright, so when I multiply 3 times 4, I'm going to have a 12 on the outside. On the inside, I'm going to have the square root of 40. Now, once I've multiplied, I got to do what I always got to do and check and see if I can simplify. Sorry, down here at the bottom, it's just going to be the same stuff as up top. So I can see, can I simplify 40? Is there a perfect square that goes in? I can break it down into 4 times 10. 4 is my perfect square. Bring one of those 2's on out. So on the outside, I'm going to have 12 times 2, which is going to be 24. And on the inside, you're just going to have the square root of 10. So that would be your answer. So the biggest thing about multiplying is just remember that you're going to multiply both the outside terms. Whatever that product is, you'll put it on the outside, and then you'll multiply the inside terms, keep them underneath, and then simplify. So for this one, I'm going to multiply my outside terms. I'm going to multiply 2 and negative 3, so I have a negative 6, and underneath my radical, 3 times 5, which is 15. Now I'd think about, can I simplify this any further? 4 doesn't go into this, 9 doesn't go into this, 16 obviously can't go into it, so that is going to be my most simplified form. For number 6, following the same process, I'm going to multiply the outsides. Notice I have a cube root this time, so I got to make sure that both of them are the cube root. So when I multiply my outsides, I'm going to have negative 12, and on the inside I'm going to do 16 times 4, which is 64. Now, what I'm going to do is evaluate cube root of 64. That happens to be a perfect cube. We happen to have 4 times 4 times 4 to be 64. So I know that what this simplifies to, there's going to be nothing left underneath once I've taken all those 4's out. So really I'm just going to have negative 12 times 4 to get me a negative 48. And that would be my answer. Now what some people might think to do, they might say you can actually go ahead and simplify these first. See if you can simplify them first, and then from there go ahead and multiply everything out. I'm going to tell you to do whichever method you prefer. If you like to multiply out, which is pretty much the way that I'm going to show you how to do it, multiply first and then simplify, that's one way. The other way, of course, you could multiply, you simplify first, and then multiply. Alright, so as we go to the back, again, same process. I'm going to, even though we're involving variables, I'm still going to just multiply my outsides and then follow that by multiplying my insides. So my outsides, when I multiply them, I'm going to have 5 times 3, which is 15. And then on the inside, I'm going to have 4 times 8, which is going to be 32. And then my x, 3 times x2, which is x to the 5. Alright, so now from here I'm going to say, can I simplify what's inside my radical? Do I have a perfect square that goes into 32? Yes, I do. 16 times 2. 16 is the perfect square, meaning I'm going to bring a 4 out front. So now out front it's going to be 15 times 4, which is going to get me 60. And on the inside of my square root, I still have that 2 left over. And so if I want to do the mixed numbers method for my exponent, x to the 5 divided by 2, which is 2 1/2, meaning I'm going to pull 2 of the x's out front. I'm going to pull 2 of the x's out front and leave 1 on the inside. And that is my answer in simplified form. So the reason why we spent so much time doing all this simplifying is because it comes into play and is very important, especially for multiplying, for any of the stuff that we're going to see from here on out. And so that's why we're spending so much time emphasizing the simplifying portion, because you can understand how to do the multiplication, the addition, so on and so forth, but if you don't understand the simplification, it can make your life a little bit harder. So, going on to number 8. Again, I could simplify these in the beginning. I know that I could simplify the cube root of 16 down a little bit further. But for right now, I'm still going to stick with that same method of multiplying my outsides, followed by multiplying my insides. So for my outsides, I'm going to have 7 times negative 2, which is negative 14. And on the inside, I'm going to have the cube root of 32. From here, is there a perfect cube that goes into 32? My options are 8, 27, that's it, because the others are too big. 8 is the one that works. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 is my perfect cube, meaning I'll bring a 2 out front. So I'll do a negative 14 times 2, which is going to be a negative 28. And I'm just going to be left with a 4 once I simplify that out. Again, going to number 5, I could, as always, simplify in the beginning. So again, work with what's best for you. I'm going to just multiply, because we have no numbers on the outside here, just going to multiply these insides. So I'm going to have the square root of 375 x 9. So in this instance, when you're looking at it, you're like, whoa, 375, I'm definitely not going to be able to come up with a number that works here. So if you are stuck in that kind of situation, then look and say, could I have broken down 75 to begin with? So again, you can always think about it in terms of, can I break it down first, or do I want to break it down after? Just use some tools. I'm going to show it as multiply, and then break down, but again, do with whatever's comfortable for you. So I can break 75 down into 25 times 15. 25 is my perfect square, so I'm going to bring a 5 to the outside. 15 is going to be left over. Now, with my x's, if I want to do the little trick, x to the 9 divided by 2, it's going to be 4 and 1/2. So I'm going to bring 4 x's to the outside, leave 1 out of the 2 on the inside, and my answer is simplified. So, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and that is everything for R7. Hope you have a good rest of your day.